There we go.
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Miller, if you'd like to call the meeting to order, and you're ready to go. Yeah.
I'll call the special meeting to order of the Skagit Transit Board of Directors. And Larissa, if you can note the roll.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
here we go. Commissioner Brownie, Commissioner Janicki, Commissioner Weiss. Oh, thank you. Janicki. Commissioner Weissen, Mayor Donovan, Mayor Johnson.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mayor Miller,
Here.
Mayor Aslip,
Here.
Councilperson Stavik, Councilperson Vanderstoke, Judy Jones, and Tracy Cook. Okay, thank you, everyone.
I'm not sure we have a quorum, and I don't know that we need one.
Right, correct.
Okay, to take out. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a PowerPoint that we hope to be sharing. Oh, yes. I don't think about their faces, but if they can see it, that we'll just get logistically up. So we are here representing the Office of the Washington State Auditor. My name is Dina Garza, and I am a program manager with our office. In that role, one of my duties is to oversee the team based out of Bellingham that performs all the audits for Whatcom, Skagit, San Juan, and a good portion of Island County. So we are here today as the exit conference, just to talk about our audit, to share our results, and then make sure we're providing information that's helpful in all of your different roles. So that is our goal today. As we mentioned, we do have a PowerPoint that we like to bring as it goes through visually those results. We have also provided a packet for those here in person and emailed the same information to the board. So they should have that. We will try and reference as we're going through. It's got a mix of administrative documents and things that we're going to verbally share today, as well as the draft reports that will be published after this meeting. I always like to say that we like to bring the reports and draft first to you, make sure that we're all in agreement with the language before we publish on our website. So we don't expect any significant changes, but that is part of it that we'll walk through. With me today is Scott Hilton, who was a supervisor on the audit, and then Nathan Hampton, who was the audit lead, who worked more directly with you and your staff and oversaw the team. So each of us will be presenting a portion of today's presentation. On the next slide, if we could, before we go too far into it, we always like to touch base on what's important to us as the auditor's office and how we like to make sure that we show up. So especially in an exit, we recognize that we are talking about the results of the audit, and that can have an impact, whether it's internal policies or externally to your public, to your interested citizens, right? And so on the screen, you can see our three main goals as an office. The first is that we have a vision of increased trust in government. From our role, we see a lot of good in government, and we really want to make sure we're telling that story. So whether it's the external validation of a third-party audit or being able to put in our reports that you are safeguarding public funds, any of those kind of things, we really try and make sure that we are doing our job so that the public is aware of that, right, and that they're informed. So we do that in a couple ways. One, it's very important to us to be independent, as you can see on there, as a state agency, making sure we are not telling you how to fix something and then auditing it, right? We try and keep that separate. But being transparent is very important to us, both during the audit as well as with our citizens. And so answering questions, providing guidance, letting you know what we're seeing around the state, as well as I mentioned, publishing our reports on the website so that all the information is available and accessible to anybody who's interested. So it's important to us not only during the audit, but today, if there are any questions, if there's any additional information we can provide, that's really important to us because I think it brings more value in each of your, again, respective roles and where you're going back to. The last one that I want to touch on is a goal of improved efficiency and effectiveness of government. So as I said, and we believe in being transparent and answering questions or providing that government or guidance, that we just want to support the roles that each of you have and what you're doing on the day-to-day basis. And so that's why we hope that the tone of any of our interactions, our recommendations is always helpful, providing that guidance or noting where things could be tweaked or adjusted. That's our goal, is to do that. We are not what we call gotcha auditors. We don't come in with badges and fines and things like that. We're just working together to make government better. And so we hope that that's what you experienced during the audit process, but for sure in today's meeting. So with that, we will start talking about the audits that we performed. And so if we can advance to the next slide, and I will have Nathan talk about that.
Yeah, so first we just want to say thank you. In the prior audit period, we had a management letter recommendation for over general disbursements, specifically for policies surrounding credit card purchases, travel authorizations, things of that nature. And through our review of that, those corrective actions, we found that the transit has started implementing new policies and procedures that address our management letter recommendation. So we just wanted to say that we didn't find any issues with our review of that recommendation. So if you want to go to the next slide. This gets us into our accountability audit, which we performed for fiscal year 23. That's January 1st to December 31st, 2023. And if you flip to the accountability report tab of your exit packet, starting on about page 7, the areas that we looked at as a part of our accountability audit were accounts payable, which we followed up on, general disbursements, credit cards, and travel expenditures. We also look at open public meetings and financial condition, which are both 2 areas that we look at, required to look at as part of all of our audits. And we didn't find any issues with any of these areas. If you go to the next slide. So in the selected areas that we did for our accountability audit, the transit operations complied in all material respects with applicable state laws, regulations, and its own policies, and provided adequate controls over the safeguarding of public resources. And that's just an excerpt from the report on top of page 7. We also have to say that in keeping with general auditing practices, we do not examine every transaction, activity policy, internal controller area. As a result, no information is provided on the areas that we're not examining. So we looked at accounts payable, obviously, and then the 2 required areas, OPMA and financial condition. So we did not identify any errors with our issues. Is there any questions about our accountability audit before we get into financial statements? So our financial statement audit results is we identified an unmodified opinion, and that's going to be on the federal or financial single report tab, starting on page 14. So we issued a modified opinion in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles or US GAAP, and our audit was conducted in accordance with government auditing standards. We did identify a significant deficiency finding, which did not affect our opinion on the financial statements, so our opinion was still unmodified, and we didn't identify any deficiencies that we considered to be material weaknesses. We also noted no instances of non-compliance that were material to the financial statements of the transit as well. So in the next slide, we do talk about that finding a little bit more, and that's going to be on the finding tab of the exit packet.
Page 16.
Page 16. So our finding had to do with the internal controls over financial reporting for pensions. So that was a material change to the financial statements for this year, as the transit is not participating in government-sponsored pension plans. So we found some errors with the reporting of pensions, which the transit did correct during our audit period. And then also as part of our financial report, we do have a corrective action plan, which is on page. Yeah, 32. 32. Yeah, which shows what the transit is planning to do to correct our finding recommendation and what they've already done, which is correct the errors that we found in the financial statements. So is there any questions about specifics about the finding or anything like that?
No questions.
So just on the next slide, this gets us into, because the transit corrected those misstatements from that finding, we didn't identify any uncorrected misstatements. We also are required to assess management override controls as a risk as part of our financial statement audit, which is the risk that management can override policies and procedures to make unsupported transactions, things of that nature. And the way we address that area is we look at journal entries, so the review process and preparation process over journal entries, making sure that it's not one person who's preparing and reviewing those journal entries, that there's additional layers of review and preparation. And we did not identify any issues with management override controls. So getting into our next slide, which is our single audit. We selected the federal transit cluster as part of our federal compliance audit, which expended about $6.4 million total, and it approximately was about 96% of the total federal expenditures. So we did cover a pretty large portion of the scheduled expenditures of federal awards as part of our single audit. So going into our next slide, we have the results for that, which was also unmodified. It was issued, we issued Transit's compliance with requirements applicable to its major program, which was the federal transit cluster. And our audit was also conducted in accordance with government auditing standards. And as part of our audit, we reported no significant deficiencies in internal controls, no deficiencies of considered to be material weaknesses, and noted no instances of non-compliance that are required to be reported. So no issues with our single audit. So just going to the next slide. And that gets us into our report publication.
And like Dina said, this is a draft report that we've included in here. And the final report will also include the financial statements of the transit as well. So it was just kind of too much to print. So we don't typically include it with what we bring here, but that we expect to be published on our website within the next week or so. And when that's published, it also triggers some other things like that it'll be posted on our website. And one way that I know a lot of you probably are signed up for the alerts that you can receive alerts either for your local jurisdictions like your cities and but also for transits around the state, and you can customize the report subscription. And so we encourage you, there's the link there included in the slide, and then it's also in the one of the first couple pages of the packet we passed along as well. But also what's really important to us is it sends out a survey, and at the end of the audit when it's published, and the survey will go to Chris as our main audit contact, I believe, right now. And it is also forwardable, so you can forward it to other people who are involved in the audit heavily, or other people who may want to comment within the organization. And so we appreciate the feedback on anything we can do as far as communication or our processes or whatever. If you just really liked everything that we did, we also enjoy hearing that too. So any feedback is really valuable, and we especially here next year would try to implement it, but even on the audits that are ongoing right now, we try to take quick action with that stuff. So on the next slide, we just have more closing remarks about just the audit costs first. We're happy to say that we came close to what our estimate was at the beginning of the audit. When we estimate our audit costs, we estimate it based on that there's like no correction, no significant recommendations. We had the finding with this one, so we do have a one-time increase of about $3,000 to the audit costs from the original estimate. So I say one-time because we don't expect that going forward. You'll see the estimate in the packet for our next audit mirrors what we estimated for this audit. And it will cover the same areas, the accountability audit, the financial statement audit, and the federal programs as well, which I think we expect federal money to be coming in for the near future. yeah. I mean, and maybe even more and more, right? So yeah, there's a lot to do there, and it could be, I understand for transits, even new programs, besides the typical federal transit cluster that we audit, if there's programs from other agencies or different grants that we may have to focus on those instead of the federal transit cluster like we usually do. So any questions about the audit information there before I go on? Okay. Finally here, we have a couple of resources that we do like to point to. Like Dina said, there's the audit team that you see day to day, but we're a 400 person-ish organization, and so there's other resources within the state auditor's office to help out with sort of the day-to-day things. The first one being the local government support team, and this one is one I highly recommend anybody if they have questions about transit-specific issues or areas or things that you're looking at doing, or financial reporting, or how to account for something. We have a help desk that you can submit. They're free to use. I mean, it's included in all of our audit services and everything. And on there's also the bars reporting and everything that can be used. The other area being the Center for Government Innovation, and it is more of it's more of an independent resource-based wing of our office that creates tools and other types of resources just to use in the day-to-day. Like if you're restructuring anything, like your accounts payable process, or have cybersecurity questions, or if you have questions about how you're receiving funds, things like that. I know it's always changing, and there are a lot of tools on there, and they're always generating new tools. We included in the entrance conference several links to different tools on the website and the entrance conference information that we sent out earlier in the audit. But if anybody has any questions about those, our contact information is in this packet we provided. But so we're always happy to answer questions. A lot of times we'll direct you to some of the other resources too, because they may be more complete than information we can give. So yeah, that's couple areas of our office, and with that, if there's any other questions from the transit or from management, board of directors, that we can answer about the audit process or what's next or anything that we presented here today.
Do you have any comments, Mayor?
Just one comment, maybe for the rest of the board members. City of Anacortes, we took a hit on my finance director's favorite Gatsby, Rule 68 on the pensions, I think, in our 2022 audit year. And again, appreciate State Auditor's Office working with us and getting that fixed and getting us understanding it. And I think you helped Skagit Transit understand it too. So that one's been a challenging one, I think, for all the finance folks. So we'll eventually all get it right.
Yeah, it's been nearly 10 years. We've been working through that as like the transit just joined it, so they kind of got to go through the same thing a lot of people went through 8 to 10 years ago when the accounting standards were changed, and so we're on the other side of that now, and I think it's worked out fine, and the statements look good.
This is only my second state audit with the agency. I just want to say last year was great. This year was great too. It was a really wonderful and collaborative process. So thank you guys for your patience as we kind of work through some other internal challenges. But yeah, you guys are fantastic.
Thank you. Exactly.
And I would agree. Actually, the first 3 pillars that you put up on the PowerPoint, the transparency piece is one of the most key. I think it's a great use of public money funds to have different organizations audited on a regular basis by an independent source.
You won't hear arguments from us.
No.
Thank you. There's nothing else.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sorry, I'm on a phone. This is Lisa Janicki. I'm down at a conference in Vancouver, so I just escaped to a corner to the question that I have is actually looking forward to next year's audit. If there are changes in systems, like going into a new payroll system or going into other new financial accounting systems, are there any special processes or procedures that auditor's office would do prior to the regular audit, or is that all baked into one big audit?
Yeah, so we have an IT audit team that we typically utilize to do conversion work, so that it can happen more. I'm sorry, I'm kind of talking to her and you guys, but to that we can utilize more timely to the go live date for something like that. So our center definitely has resources about conversions and some tips that we've seen. And then that IT audit team could do that so that we know that the information has transferred over, that it's solid to then perform the audit. So we don't typically try and we found benefits in not lumping that in all at the same time, but doing it more open, spread out, more working with your staff on the timeline that makes sense. So yes, we do have that and could separate it out and just would be looking for the communication of when that would be ready so that I can schedule with the people that make sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
Reach out to you because we are actually.
And for timing, the IT
We will
team
talk to them.
waits until it has gone live and usually after that point anyway. So once it's being used on its own as the system, then the IT team can come in and do it. But we typically will just work with the transit on when works best.
Yeah.
Good question. Thank you.
So as you recognized and something I said early on, we are very open, not only during the audit process, but outside of it as well. And so like Scott mentioned, all of our contact information is on page 3 of the packet. And that includes our upline, our assistant director and director of local audit as well, just to physically show that we want you to be able to feel comfortable reaching out to us if there's things that we can answer, or if it transcends our team that are that Wendy and Kelly are also very open to try and make sure that the audit process is a positive one, like you said, and that we are being helpful and informative and professional in our interactions as well. So and with that, that's all that we have today.
We're glad it was a good audit and short meeting.
And if anybody likes the paper copies, we'll leave the extra ones we have here.
Yeah,
If anybody wants, if they have a box or.
For the folks online, if there's anybody that wants to stop by and get one, we'll make sure that they're at the front desk.
All right. I don't think I have to close it since we didn't officially have a quorum, but thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.